Hello and welcome to Stage Perspective. My name is Charles Peters and our guest today is Jacqueline Ritz. Hello.
Hi, Charles Peters.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm
Good,
good.
good.
You and I have worked together twice, I
Too many
believe.
times.
Too
Yeah.
many times. Well, that's a great way to start. Uh, um, we
It
did
was
a
my sincerest pleasure both times.
It
Loved it.
was. It was my pleasure both times. The first play was a play that you directed at Scripps French Theater called Accomplice, which, if you don't know the play, that's Rupert Holmes. Is that correct? Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, yeah.
And it's a crazy play. I can't even really.
It's
I
three
don't.
plays.
It's three plays in one. I don't even want to take up the time to describe the play, but I had such great fun, and it's a highlight of my recent years doing that show because it was so much fun to do.
I was just thinking about you, and now the last 5 years, I've really kind of moved into not only acting but directing.
Hmm.
Um, and I was thinking about how much fun it is, and that's the kind of directing that I like to do is to have someone like you in my show who goes off and comes up with these creative things as he's creating these characters. And as we said, it was three plays within a play, and you had to create three different characters.
Yeah.
And as you went along, you'd add another layer and you'd make them a little more different. And this guy has this layer, and this
Yeah.
guy is a little more like that. And I particularly
Thank
loved
you.
you
Thank you.
misstepping off that step over and
Yep.
over. And oh my God. And it was so grounded. I just love that about your performance.
I remember in
Very,
rehearsals, you were like, you laughed so hard when I did it the first time, and then you were like, if you do that, you have to keep doing it. And I was like, yes. So it was had to. I stepped down off the steps several times, during that particular character's scenes, and yeah, that was a lot of fun and very well received as well. I mean, it was a surprise for people. It's amazing that play's not done more. I know it's
yeah,
relatively
Jill,
new.
I think Jill told me that was the highest selling show they had that season.
I believe it. Yeah. It was so much fun and just so different. And I mean, from everything. I mean, the acting and the set and
Oh yeah.
the whole nine yards.
Oh yeah. He built a great set for
Yeah.
us.
And we worked our butts off doing that. I mean, and it felt right. I mean, I talked to people about it and they said, I would talk about the rehearsal period and they'd go, wow. And I go, yeah, but it needed it. You
We
had
did
to do it. You had to do it that way. So
because we were rehearsing three different plays,
yeah, we
and
were.
they each had their own style. They
Mm-hmm.
each had their own tempo.
Mm-hmm.
You guys were
Yeah.
great, and it was
Yeah.
it was a pleasure to work with all four of you,
Yeah.
honestly.
And you were too, because you dig so deep. I mean, it's not, I mean, in a lesser person's hands, it would have been, oh, that was fun. But there was so much more in that, so much more we discovered by
I'm
digging
so
as deep as we did. So,
I'm so much more interested in seeing real cause and effect.
right.
If this thing happens, like I'll be sitting there with my kids watching a show, and they're high schoolers, right?
Hmm.
And my daughter's in elementary school, but in particular, the voice would say, "That didn't make sense.
Hmm.
Why did that person do that?"
Right.
Because we're human beings, one thing leads to the next thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, we have these rich lives, and then there's the cause and effect. And if it's not making sense and it's not kind of in you and you're understanding it from a visceral point,
Yeah.
I think, and you guys were all so game to go deep and to
Right.
ask the questions and
Well,
to
I think we were
explore.
on such unsure footing that having someone like yourself to do that and guide us, we were so willing to, like, well, where do we need to go? It's kind of like we got to climb to the top of those three mountains. Is well, how are we going to get there? We're game, we're ready, we want to do it, but like, how do we get there? The other play was Communicating Doors by Alan Ayckbourn, and that's a fairly well-known play. It's not done a lot, but that's another crazy play with doors and time travel and consequences and so forth. And that was
It's a,
challenging as well, but
it's
that
a
was a lot of fun.
technically difficult show
Hmm.
because it's difficult for the tech team. It's difficult
Hmm.
for the designers.
Yeah.
All of the designers, the sound and the light and the setting all has to be on the same page in terms of quick shifts. And then we have to be on the same page because we switch 20 years each time.
Right.
And it's a difficult draw.
Yeah, and having the audience come with you on that as well. I mean, you can't just tell the story. You have to make sure they're following, to a certain degree.
Exactly. And that's the
So,
tricky part, isn't it? Is
yeah,
our audiences now are so used to quick storytelling, right?
yes,
Everybody
yeah,
watches shows, the editing is
yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
And yet you have to lay out, because in a theater piece, you have 2 hours to tell a really deep story.
right,
Right? So you have to lay it out super clear, but you have to quickly move to the next bit. It's a very,
yeah,
and Acheborn, you know, Acheborn's thick. I had just
yeah,
done a play. I had just done, acted in How the Other Half Loves at North Coast Rep at the time.
right,
And all of us, and they were 6 seasoned actors. And I remember, Jamie, I was playing opposite, he was like we would have rehearsals where we would just run this one section for him, because it's really, really intricate, and it's
hmm,
like choreography,
yeah,
but you're responding to different people at different times.
yeah,
It's really tricky, really cool stuff, but really
yeah.
it involves a lot of rehearsal.
The other Acheborn piece that I did was Absurd Person Singular, and
Oh, okay.
that's a comedy, but it is in 3 different stages, 3 different acts, and it's also very thick and and there's a lot of language, and you really have to pay attention. We were all worn out after doing that.
Uh-huh.
So, same with for me for Communicating Doors, I was on the beginning and on at the end and came in a couple of times. So I wasn't as worn out, but they definitely were the main characters. So
But you
crazy.
had a monster scene at the beginning, because
I
you had
did.
so much exposition and
Yeah.
backstory, and
Right.
you were a dying man at the time. So
Right.
I made you do that
Yeah.
huge cross
Yeah.
across the stage.
Yep.
You're
Yep.
a dying man.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you are originally from Chicago. Did you grow up in
I
Chicago?
grew up in Colorado.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
And
and then I went to graduate school. Oh, it's a funny little story how I ended up in Chicago. Do I have a minute? Shall I tell you?
yes,
So
absolutely.
weird. So I went to grad school at the Oslo Conservatory.
Hmm.
And my girlfriend and I were going to move to New York, but we had a month. I think we had 2 months where we were not slated to move into New York until whatever it was, September 1st or something. She said, well, here's what we should do, because my brother is in Chicago, but he'll be gone. So we'll have his apartment. We can just live in Chicago for a month. And I thought, hey, that sounds pretty cool. And I was driving, because I'd gone home to Colorado, and then I was driving my car to Chicago, and then I was going to pick her up when we were going to go to New York. And I get there, and that day, she says, you're not going to believe this, but there's an audition right around the corner. We could literally walk to it. And I said, oh, let's go. We were right out of grad school, fresh-faced, right out of grad. So it was right around the corner, right?
Right.
So we grabbed our resumes, because we had them all fresh, spanking new from grad school.
Right.
Walked around the corner, went to this audition, had a blast, come back. The next night, she says, meet me at this small theater. It's an actor's night, right? That was a brand new thing back then in Chicago, an actor's night. We're going to go to this actor's night, and all you have to do is bring your resume, and you get in free to see this show. Well, on my way there, somebody hit me,
Huh.
totaled my car.
Oh, wow.
I know. I was fine. I think he turned out to be okay, but it was really terrifying. Luckily he turned out to be okay, but it was scary. But he totaled my car, and he ran a red light. It was just weird. But so I didn't make it to the show. I now no longer have a car to get us to New York. And the next day I got a call that I got that show that I auditioned for. So I had a job, I had a place to stay, and I had no wheels. So I stayed in Chicago for the next 15 years.
That's so funny. Wow. How different your life would have been, who knows what would have happened, so yeah.
Yeah, it was a great training ground for a young actor, Chicago.
Yeah. Yeah.
There were lots of opportunities. And I was, hungry and young and willing to. I went to so many auditions. I went to many a day. Yeah. Many in a day.
Yeah. And Chicago's a great theater town. I mean, there's a lot of theater there, obviously. Yeah.
It's a great camera town. I had just gotten a great agent when the first SAG strike hit. The 90s, I guess. But I was starting to get stuff, and then I started having kids after that. So
yeah.
It
Yeah.
all became, my world just got bigger and bigger.
Yeah. You have a family, and then you met your husband in Chicago, correct?
I did.
Now, was that your motivation for coming to San Diego?
My
What?
motivation for coming to San Diego, yeah, was the family. It
Yeah.
was family. It was quality of life. I mean, I'd get the third kid in a snowsuit, and the first one had taken his off.
Right.
It just was.
Yeah.
And I had a sister who lived here at the time, and my family was in Colorado, so it was closer for me to be out west
Yeah.
than in the Midwest.
Yeah.
But she lived here. She had a son who was my middle son's age. We did family dinners. I just was ready for a little more sunshine.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I remember being in Chicago on Mother's Day wearing my parka, and I was like, this is absurd.
It's crazy. Yeah. And did you know at that time? I mean, you were equity by then, right? Were you equity
Oh,
in
yeah.
Chicago? I would assume yes.
I turned
And
it in 1995, I think, pretty quickly after I'd gotten it.
and you still obviously now, for people that don't know, you're an equity actress. There are a number of them, but San Diego is a strange town in that there are a lot of equity actors, but there aren't a lot of equity actors. And
It's so interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'm on the liaison committee, the AEA, Actors Equity Association liaison committee, and I just went on to register because there's an annual meeting tonight of our area, and the registration's full. So,
yeah, that's good. Yeah.
so that's good. But no, I mean, when you think about the number, I remember talking to Maggie Carney. Do you remember Maggie Carney? She just moved to LA. She's working tons. She got an agent. But anyway, I moved here. She was in Chicago, and we had done some Shakespeare together with Bartow Shakespeare. And I moved here after, and she'd been here for a little while. I think her husband was working maybe at the school at La Jolla. But I think he does Joe Tech. He does the slide. He does really cool tech stuff. Anyway, Joe Tech Hubbard is his name. But she said there's 6 equity theaters here, Jackie. There's 6.
Yeah.
She said I can count them on 2 hands, and that's quite a change from Chicago.
Right.
To go from, I mean, it was not uncommon for me to have more than 1 audition in a day. I remember a day having 6.
Yeah.
There was just lots of opportunity there that. Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up, and I don't know why that is here. Do you?
I don't really know. It's a weird thing, and I don't know if it's a money thing or if I don't know why that is. It's funny. A lot of people assume people are equity just because of the amount that they work, but I know a lot of very well-known actors in town, and I've talked to them, and they go, "No, I'm not equity," and I go, "Oh, I just assumed that you were," and they're not, because there is the availability for you not to be. And I know a lot of equity actors that were equity that went off of it because they go, I'm not getting work, and they feel frustrated by that because of the limitations or the idea that, oh, it's an equity contract and the expense and the contracts, and personally, I'm not afraid of it.
No, it's a really valuable thing, and I mean, it's incredibly valuable, I think, to have a system in place that respects and pays. I mean, unions, we all know unions were here because people wanted a fair wage. They wanted to do their job. They wanted to be committed to their job. And I'm a member of that union. I'm a member of SAG. I feel very strongly that unions are very important in our system. Because it's true that before equity came along, actors were working long hours. They were working in unsafe conditions. I know that people now say, well, we fixed that. And that's true. But I mean, a lot of people work for a little bit of money here.
Yeah, they do. There's a lot of that.
And I don't think that's fine. There are ways to make it, there are ways to supplement income and that kind of thing. It's not as fun to have to work 2 and 3 jobs as, people who do that know. But I don't know. I think there's more opportunity than where.
Oh, I agree. And I know that being SAG-AFTRA and of course being equity, even that, you would certainly find a lot of work, but you also making a living here as an actor is not a viable thing. You're
Yeah,
not
I mean, I guess
idiots.
that's
Like
part of it.
you have to have a backup. There's not a way to do that. Whereas like in LA and New York, you can be a working actor. You can do this and do that and do this and do that and make a living in your business. Now, there's a lot of people like me that manage to stay in their field and work, and that's what I do. But it's, I have a partner as well, so
Right.
like you do, and
Yeah.
where would I be? It'd be a different situation for me. So, but yeah,
And that's kind of that's always the problem of the actor, I think, everywhere, whether they're union or not union. I mean,
yeah,
for me, it's like, and again, the confusion comes from me coming from Chicago, where there's so much incentive to hire equity and to be
right,
equity.
yeah,
And
that's
that's
not
just
here.
not the case here. Like,
Yeah,
I
it's
have
not.
I've been told more than a few times that I did not get a job because they didn't want to use an equity contract.
That's kind of what I was saying earlier. It's just like there's a stigma about it. It's like, oh, it's such a hassle, and I'm like, really, it's not. And there's a plus side of like it's kind of like buying quality. You're getting 98% of the time. I mean, there are a lot of equity actors that are, I just feel
And
like,
it's not to say
yeah,
that people who aren't in the union aren't talented.
no, exactly, yeah,
It's just kind of a lifestyle and a thing that we have to do as a community,
hmm
to say, this is worth something. This is worth investing in. This is
Yeah.
worth kind of raising the bar a little bit and because when you have a full equity contract going on, there's expectations and they're met.
Right. Yeah.
Every single time.
Yeah, and there's an expectation of quality because it's. I've belonged to other groups and unions and stuff where by joining that, it's a legitimizing thing. You go, well, at least you know that this person had to fight or had to work to a certain point to get into the union or get into this club or get to this point,
Yeah.
or they wouldn't be here. So there's that. So there is that expectation of like, well, at least you're getting that, So yeah,
And they're willing to stand up for their union. They're willing to say, you know what, like, I remember there was a job that I had gotten, and they said, actually, it's a non-union. It was a voiceover thing. They're like, actually, it's a non-union thing. You could do it under another name. And I was like, I just don't believe in that.
Yeah.
I believe in supporting my union, and I hear you. The producers don't want to pay as much, or whoever it is that holds the purse string. The client doesn't want to pay that much, and that's their choice.
Yeah.
I'm just not on board with that. I just think.
And they will find you, because apparently I heard through the grapevine that there are teams of people that look at small theaters and read bios and read playbills and stuff and track down equity actors and go, hey, so it can happen.
I don't think the union is that interested in that.
I don't think they're that. I don't think they're that involved, but I've heard stories about people getting caught. So
I bet. I mean, in everything, that's always the case. But I do believe, as a member of the liaison committee, I do believe that equity believes that we're worth it, and they're coming at it from a really positive place, which is, you're worth it, we're worth it, our community is ready for paying for good theater.
Yeah.
It's not going to be thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars more. It's just going to be kind of an understanding that we all putting into the pot. There I am speaking like a liberal, but
that's all right. So when you moved here, I know that you do a lot of work at like North Coast Rep, because they tying into this conversation, hire equity actors.
Yeah, David's a big fan.
And have no shame about it, and they're like, "This is what we do," and that's great. And I know that that's been a great thing for you at North Coast, and I know you like working there. What are some other theaters you've worked at around in town?
Well, let's see. I did my very first show. I was cast in here, and I had my little daughter, and she was 3. I did Midsummer Night's Dream at Intrepid.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and they had added 60s music to it. It was a blast.
Wow.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. David McBean played Oberon, and I was Titania. And Phil Johnson was Bottom.
Right, I remember that production. Yeah.
It was we just had a blast. We had a blast. Kevin Hapso Kaufman was Puck.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the first show I ever did here.
Wow, okay.
That was a really fun introduction into the community because I got to
That's
work with lots
fairly
of.
recent too. I mean, that's only
Yeah,
like
no,
what?
yeah, no.
That's like 8 years ago, maybe
I don't
tops.
even think it was that.
Yeah, maybe
Maybe
6.
2014, maybe or
Oh yeah.
2013.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I remember that production. Yeah.
Yeah, I had been here for a few years. Well, I moved here. My daughter was a baby.
Mm-hmm.
She was on my hip, and she's turning 11 next week. So
Okay.
she was 3 or 3.5 at the time, or something.
Okay. Yeah.
In fact, I remember Colleen Collar Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember Colleen? She works
Yep.
up north now.
Yeah.
Um,
She was at Lambs for a long time.
she was at Lambs for a long time. She's been
Right.
around. Yeah, she was at Intrepid at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But she said to me, I really admire that you can do this while having kids because, she's a mom of 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, really? And she's like, yeah, you don't see that. And she's right. Here, you don't see that.
It's rare. Most of the gals I know, when they had kids, they stopped. They stepped away. I had Jason Heil said to me when we had Harvey, he goes, "Well, prepare to disappear." And I mean, I'm his caregiver.
Right.
I'm the mom, if you want to do stereotypes. But I didn't disappear. It can be done. It's difficult. I mean,
But
you
you
do a
need the
lot of.
support of your spouse.
Yes, and I have support, and I had other support, but there's a real juggling act that goes on. But it's like, okay, I'm gonna drop in that, and then I have to go to rehearsal. So
Yeah.
yeah, but it can be
Well,
done.
I
But
had 3, which made a difference.
that's a big difference.
1 to 3 is a big leap.
Yeah.
But not to say that I don't, parents are parents, and we understand
Yeah.
there's a need to be at home.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's
But,
a real.
but then, they got older and they got their own interests. And, for a while, I was doing about 2 shows a year.
Yeah.
Whether I was directing or acting. And I spend a lot of time putting meals in the freezer. And, my husband works more than full time. He works long, long hours. So he was super supportive.
Yeah.
Great Tom Doherty.
Give him a shout out. There you go.
There he is.
There you go.
Yeah, so they were supportive, and the kids have all loved it. They love theater.
Yeah.
And they come and see the shows that they can.
Yeah.
Or the first act, and maybe not the second when it gets dark, whatever. But they're all big fans.
What made you want to be an actress? Can you trace it back? Can you go back? I mean, I have some inklings when I was a kid of like what sort of did it for me. But do you have a thing that you can point to that you go, oh, and something clicks? Or is it just a gradual, or did who were your influences?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was really cause and effect. It was one thing led to the next thing, led to the next thing. And an understanding, kind of a dawning realization that I loved telling stories.
Mm-hmm.
I had a really active imagination.
Yeah.
I loved expressing things physically. I loved dancing and moving through space. But I went to a small private school, Catholic school, when I was growing up, and I was really kind of quiet and shy. So I went to this small Catholic private school, and I remember being quiet. I have 5 sisters and a brother. One of my sisters passed away, but I was one of 7 children, and I was the second youngest. So there was a lot going on around me, and I just kind of found my own space, my own kind of group of friends, but realized I was really interested in telling the stories and reading the stories and singing and all of those kinds of ways of expressing myself. And I started getting the leads in the school shows. I remember getting the lead in the 3rd grade play, and then the 8th grade play, which were the big plays at our school. And then I went to high school and I got the lead in as a sophomore, and it was just something that kind of one led to the other. I realized it was something that I could do, and then something that I liked doing, and something that was rewarding to me and was happening for me. But I went to college thinking I was going to study. Well, I was going to go I had a scholarship to do an engineering week. Realized that wasn't for me. I loved math. I loved spatial things. I didn't think that I wanted to be in STEM. And then I was in school, and somewhere in my sophomore year, I decided I'm just going to take an acting class. I'd love to take an acting class. So I did. And the professor came up to me and said, I want you to take this other class. So I was taking 2 classes in tandem, and both of the professors said to me, we have this BFA program. and we only take 10 students, and we'd really like you to audition for it.
Wow.
So it was kind of one of those things where I was loving it, and because I was loving it, I was investing in it, and because I was investing in it, I was being noticed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was that cyclical thing. So then I got my BFA, and then I finished there and said, you know what, I think I need my MFA, and I did that. The rest, boom.
And well, you mentioned about going to Chicago. You were moving to New York to do your MFA?
No, I got my MFA at the Oslo Conservatory. Which is
that's right. I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the plan was to move to New York because I'd never known about Chicago. I would never even have stopped there if my girlfriend hadn't been there.
Was the idea to move to New York and were you going to be an actress? Were you going to teach? Were you going to get into a school?
I think I always wanted to do regional theater.
Yeah. And you felt like you could, like, at this point, after so much experience, there was I would imagine somewhere in that point you decided, I can do this for a living. This is what I want to do, right?
I think people who go for their MFA in acting think that. Yeah. Yeah. Because they only take, you go through a ridiculous amount of auditioning and negotiating to get into the program. And then it's a professional program, and you're acting on LORT stages at the time, and especially the Oslo, which is it's a huge LORT theater. And we were working on the stage, and you think that's your path, A lot of those students, or friends of mine have gone off to do other things. I can think of a few that have stayed in the business in different ways, not necessarily acting. And then I can think of at least one woman who still acts.
Yeah. When did you start directing?
So, I started going to a lot of theater. I think one of the things that you do, and you can do in Chicago, and you should do everywhere, wherever you live, if you want to be an actor, is you should go see a lot of theater. So I would go to auditions. I would go to see theater. I would go to actors' nights. And I started realizing, as a storyteller, some of the stories I could tell which ones were really being told well and which ones needed a little more lift, and what parts you needed to start bringing out. And I realized, I think I have an analytical mind. I think I have a critical kind of mind that could break up a story better. So I moved here. It was when I moved here. And I had done some directing projects in undergrad, and I had done some, but mostly I was full on acting. But I moved here, and a friend of mine, Tom Andrews, said, I've got a friend who's directing at Scripps Ranch Theater. Maybe she needs an assistant director. And this was Katie Rada. And they were doing Crimes of the Heart. And that was like 2011. So I went in, and I sat as an assistant director, and we'd have conversations. Katie's lovely, and we'd have these really great conversations. And then I was like, yeah, this is really great. How does one become a director? And then I just kind of started talking more and more about it, and doing and inserting myself when I could. Hannah Logan was doing the 24-hour thing, and she needed directors. So I had done a lot of acting in town at that point. She was like, yeah, you can direct. And then I did one for SDSU. Moxie did a thing. And so I directed for them. And then I think I had worked with Annie Hinton, and she was going to direct at Scripps Branch, and something happened and she couldn't do it. And she said to Jill, would you like some names? And Jill said, yeah. She said, try Jacqueline Ritz. And then she called me. It worked. We did it. It was your first show, my first show. And then since then, I think David had me assistant direct up at North Coast. And we were just about to do, this summer, we were supposed to do our 4th show there, Vanity Fair. Yeah. So hopefully that will come up. Yeah. At some point.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about that.
I like you as a director because, I could go on and on. We could talk for a long time about directing and acting.
We could.
But
we could and we should.
We could and we should. But I think that the fact that you have such an extensive acting experience, which is why I think that I'm a good director, I like to think I am, is not only just being able to communicate, but also being able to think about it in terms of, what is my actor thinking about when they're standing in the wings ready to go on and do this scene? What's going through their head? And to eliminate those things, to eliminate those obstacles for them and go, okay, they're worried about this, this, and this. And sometimes it's even like, you know, pedestrian things like my costume doesn't fit me right,
Oh yeah.
or this door doesn't open right, you know, whatever it
Right.
might be. And to eliminate those, like, so they're just worrying about their performance, you know. So that's a valuable thing as well. And you look into all that because you're very hands-on. I'm very hands-on, but the big thing with you is you really break stuff down. And we talk a lot when we worked. You know, we talk a lot, which is great. I mean, analyzing and breaking down stuff.
Well, there's nothing more valuable to a director than an actor who's thinking about the show from their perspective, who's thinking about who am I? What do I want? How am I going to get it? And it needs to come from the actor. And that's what's so
Right.
wonderful again about you is it has to come from, you have to decide what you want, how you're going to get it. And if you really buy into that, you really viscerally understand that.
Yeah.
Man, it's just so
Yeah.
exciting to watch people
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, and it's fun. It's fun, and it's also acting is very complicated in a lot of ways. It's very simple, but it's more.
If
It's
you
a
get
lot.
out of your own way,
It's a
right?
lot of focus, you know. So yeah, you know, if you just think about, you know, just don't forget. It's like just listen and keep your focus.
Just listen, just
yeah,
be in that.
yeah,
It's that
yeah.
whole, that, you know, we talk about that a lot as there's a lot of discussion about mental illness and things, the mindfulness that we've lost in our society, the ability
Yes.
to be in this moment,
Yeah.
to engage with this person,
Yeah.
to not worry about all the other
Yeah.
things that are going
Right.
on. It's so good for the soul.
Yeah.
It's so good for the creative person.
Yeah. Yeah.
To be in this moment, and you watch someone and you'll know the difference. Everyone knows the difference when they watch someone on stage who's completely in that moment,
Yeah.
who's completely present with the space that they're in and
Right.
the person that they're acting with.
Yeah.
It's magical.
Where the audience disappears. I mean, I remember the first time that happened to me. I think it was in high school, and I was doing a very dramatic scene, and the audience just disappeared. I totally forgot, and that was the moment that I went, "Oh wow, that's what that
That's your
feels
moment.
like." Yeah, that was a very decisive moment. Not necessarily a turning point as far as acting, but a very revealing moment for me. Is like, "Oh, that's what that feels like," and I've definitely had those. Speaking of that, what are some memorable performances for you? Some memorable roles that you have played?
Oh, wow.
And I know you played a lot. I mean, you break into song in the middle of in the middle of rehearsals.
I'm so embarrassing to take anywhere.
Why? Yeah, it's great. It's uplifting.
I love to sing. I used to sing a lot. Yeah, that was, you know, high points there's so many of roles that I loved, but when I got to work with my husband on the show that was directed by Harold Prince at the Kennedy Center, you know, that was thrilling. And
Mhm.
Stephen Sondheim called us Jackie and Tom, and we called him Steve. You know, that was thrilling. John Weidman wrote the script, and there was something about being in a room with people who were fully committed to, you know, everybody in that room was just fully committed at the top of their game, and you just brought it. You were like, you know what, we're doing this.
Yeah, that's a
So
great
we're doing
feeling.
it. It's
That's a great feeling
feeling.
when you get in it with a cast that is like nothing else matters, and you don't hear them talk about, oh well, I'm going to go on vacation and go. You don't hear any of that. I don't care what you're doing.
Yeah.
We're right here. We're doing this play. We're doing this show. I don't want to
Involved,
hear about that
committed,
stuff.
and having
Yeah.
the time, and
Yeah.
that's a lesson, isn't it? In as much as you throw yourself into something, how much you're rewarded for
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
The gain is exactly on
Yeah.
par with what you put into it.
I don't think I knew you were at the Kennedy Center. What other
Oh
amazing
yeah,
what other
I
amazing
know.
stages have you been on?
Well, then that show was also with the Goodman.
Mhm.
In Chicago, I worked at Northlight,
Yeah.
Marriott Theater, which is a 1,000-seat house.
Yeah.
That's fun when you're standing center
Mhm.
stage and everybody's looking at you, you know,
Right.
and it's in
Yep.
the round.
Yeah.
I also did Pump Poison Dinettes at that theater, and I got to climb over because I was Retta, and we do this silly little game show kind of thing at the beginning of the second act, and I'm climbing over seats, and it was so fun. And a small theater. I worked at I Love You, You're Perfect, Now Change. It was the Chicago company that did
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
And it was in a really small space at the Royal George, which is a lot of fun to work in that little space.
Yeah.
I don't know. Here it's been super. I love working at Scripps Ranch. I love the problem of that stage that is so wide,
Yeah.
and how you tell a story like
Mhm.
that,
Right.
and you try to do it so that the audience isn't going like that the whole time, you know?
Right.
And yet
Yeah.
use the space, you use the width as if it were depth.
Yeah.
That's a really fun challenge, actually.
Yeah.
I love
It
physical
is.
storytelling though, so
Yeah.
that's right up my alley. But I've done some really fulfilling things at North Coast Rep. The one I just did, I actually am one of the few people that got to do a play in 2020. But I was doing Bloomsday up there, and it was a story of
Right.
Bloomsday is two characters, but you meet them 30 years apart.
Right.
So you meet them when they're 20 and you meet them when they're 50.
Right.
And the characters have conversations with themselves.
Hmm.
And it was incredibly moving for me to do that, especially as my character over those 30 years had been through a lot. She'd been through a lot as a girl.
Yeah.
But then over those 30 years,
Yeah.
she'd been through a lot. And it was just so interesting to talk to my younger self.
Mhm.
It was really kind of moving. And there's a moment where I kind of felt like I was talking to my daughter, or how my mother would talk to me.
Yeah.
It was a really grounding experience.
Yeah.
It was neat. It was
Yeah.
neat. It was very moving. It was slyly moving. Like you didn't realize, but then it would come, and all the people that came to the show would say the same thing. By the end, it snuck up on you.
Right.
Something kind of magical happened. It was
Yeah.
a really interesting experience.
Those are fun shows when that happens. Yeah. It is
But I love
interesting.
singing. I mean,
You like-
I did Camelot. That was a great show to do. I got to do Guinevere, and I got to do
Wow.
Sarah Brown and Guys and Dolls. Those
Yeah.
were great.
You did a lot of musicals. You told me in Chicago. I know
I
you
did
did
a lot of musicals in Chicago. Well, I
Yeah.
was at the age then. There's not
Right.
a lot of roles for musical theater people now.
Yeah.
And I don't sing as much. I mean, as a musician, you really have to technically keep your voice up all the
Yeah.
time to sing every day.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing it, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a big excuse, but it's true. You have to
It
sing.
is.
if you want to
Yeah.
be a singer. Yeah.
I think it's like anything. I mean, especially with singing and dancing. Actors can get away with a lot, but because it's intangible, whereas singing is not, and neither is dancing. You're either good or you're not. You either sound good or you look good or you don't.
Mhm.
So, but two people can go see an actor and one can go, I think I was awful. And then we go, he was amazing.
Yeah.
So it's weird. Yeah, you did a lot of classical musicals. I know you did a lot of the classics. That's what we think of as like the standard, musicals in Chicago.
I did all kinds though. I mean, I did the
Yeah.
new ones and the
Yeah.
goofy ones and the workshops. Oh my gosh, all the workshops and yeah.
Did you?
Yeah, and Shakespeare. I mean, I got to do a little bit of Shakespeare when I was back in Chicago, and small person plays, and I think I've done classics. I worked at Milwaukee Rep and did there's all sorts of I love to do it all. Maybe that was my problem.
I probably know your answer to this. You probably just answered it, but you don't really have a favorite. I mean, like you would do a musical, or you would do a play, or you do a two-person play, or you do a big cast, or whatever, or comedy or drama. So you're like me, probably. It's like, I don't care.
Yeah,
I want
David Ellenstein
experience
asked me
it.
this question because I did a conversation with him, and he
Yeah.
said, "What's your favorite?" And I said, "Whichever one I'm doing."
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the one you're doing at the time.
Yeah. Because once you make that commit, I've gotten in some place where I've like, oh, okay, I guess I'm doing this. But once I get in it, that's it. That's my whole world for a little
Well,
while.
And what's wonderful too is the discovery. Like I got Guinevere not realizing how amazing that role is.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get in her body
Right.
and you're like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
She goes from a young woman to someone who thinks she's in love to then being fully and completely and utterly in love, like blindsided in love.
Right.
And realizing it's the wrong choice to make for
Right.
all of these other people. I mean, it's such a journey.
Mm-hmm.
And you think of it as, it's one of those classic musicals. And
Yeah, but there's a lot going on. I love that
there's
musical.
a reason that they are the golden standard of musical.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. There's a reason that they're called, the great classic musicals. Their reasons are classics.
Guys and Dolls, I don't think there's you'd have to fight with me to tell me there's a better written musical than that one.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if I can
If you
answer
want to
that.
fight, we can, but we don't have to.
Do you have a dream role, like a role that you want to play that you haven't played yet? or maybe,
You know, I had them
you
for
know,
certain ages, but
yeah,
I had always wanted to do Man of La Mancha.
yeah,
That didn't happen. No,
no,
I love just doing
yeah,
the classics.
yeah,
I mean, maybe there's some Shakespearean roles that I could really
yeah,
sink
yeah.
into
Jill
now,
was,
but I don't
yeah.
get a lot of opportunity to do Shakespeare because,
There's not a lot. I mean, there is some Shakespeare in town, but it's limited, I think, as
oh
far
yeah, and
as
they have
yeah.
their, I,
And
I don't know,
Intrepid is sort of, checked out. They've sort of moved. So
yeah.
they were doing a lot of Shakespeare for a while, and poor
I always,
players early
I
on.
feel like there's a place for, maybe we'll do this, Charles, one day. There's a place, there's an opening or there's a spot that needs filling and it's outdoor Shakespeare somewhere up north.
Yeah. Yeah. I've often
And if
said
there's
that. I've talked to Jill about that. She is of the mind that like there's great uh Shakespeare wrote great strong roles for women, obviously, and she's
and
like,
with the world it is now, we don't have to cast it.
right.
We don't have to cast all the lords as men.
No, no, yeah,
We, we can do so much with these
yeah,
shows.
exactly. Yeah.
People
If
of color, and
yeah,
there's just there's just a hopefully we're moving into a time where we can just start representing the world as it looks.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Just opening those doors more is really what needs to happen. And uh, it's interesting. We've had conversations about this with other people about, it's hard because we have always been very inclusive, but I think that people don't think we are. And there's also just communication and getting that word out. It's like, yes, please come to auditions here or there or wherever that might be to having those doors open. I think a lot of people have preconceived notions, people of color, people of,
Well,
diversity.
I was
So,
actively courting them,
yeah, yeah, I
I,
know that.
I'm please come, please come, please
Yeah,
come. I'll send personal emails.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
will say, please come to these auditions.
yeah,
And I know he already knows this happened, but in the one I just directed, I had offered the role to a man of color. I really wanted him to play it and he couldn't do it.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
we're trying.
Is that something that you would say to San Diego as like a theater, like a wish, or do you have another wish that you would put into that box? If there was a wish box that you could put
My wish
I hope.
box is that theater looks like the world that we live in.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I want everyone represented. And I'm not even talking, I'm talking about age, I'm talking
Right.
about
Across
sex,
the
I'm
board.
talking, yeah. And we look at our politicians and what is it? 10% of them are women,
Right.
that
Yeah.
needs to change as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course I'm a woman, so I'm going to be telling the world, I see the world through my perspective, and we all see it through different perspectives, but we see the world.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that
Yeah.
we just all need to be present. We all need to be represented.
Yeah.
My kids, I think, and you have a young son too, and
Mm-hmm.
they're living in a different world than we grew up in.
Very much so. Yeah.
And my kids, all their friends are,
Yeah.
they're non-gender
Yeah.
assigned, and there
Yeah.
are people of color, and
Yeah.
they don't think about.
Yeah.
But that's a great debate. We'll have another time.
Yeah.
History
agree.
is important, and yet it's great that they don't even think that that's
Right.
why do they care? It's just Charlie, or it's
Right. Mm-hmm.
just
Yeah.
it's just Yusuf.
That-
That's it. That's who their friend is.
Yeah. That's how I grew up. I'm very grateful for that because
Oh,
I grew up in Texas, and of course the
Oh, yeah.
stereotype of Texas is like good old boys and racism and so forth. And
I didn't know
and
you grew up in Texas. What
I
part?
grew Arlington, between Dallas and Fort Worth.
Okay.
And Fort Worth is, I think I talked to you about this the other day on
Yeah.
the phone, is a huge. So is Dallas, but Fort Worth is a lot of old money, a lot of oil money. I was in like major productions with casts of 100. I did a pageant every year that was like funded by the Walsh Foundation, which is a huge, they're all over, and grants, and you would hear their name on PBS programs. The following programs made possible by the Walsh Foundation. Those kind of people with mansions and so forth, and they would sponsor the show. That was one of the things I did. But I was in boy choir. I was in Texas Boys Choir back when that really meant something. So
I don't know the story.
well, they were Igor Stravinsky cited that they were the best boy choir in the world at one point. So beyond the Vienna Boys Choir, and when I was in, that was what it was like. Very disciplined, very strict. It's where I get a lot of my theater discipline. But it was a completely diverse group that I grew up in. And my parents were not. My parents were from New York, New Jersey, and other areas. So they weren't from Texas. So I was never exposed to that. So that was never a thought in my head. Now, as I got older, boys and girls that I hung around with, especially boys, that came into my experience, but I didn't react because I hadn't been raised that way. So I didn't think that way. So yeah, so it is a very much a different world. So, and I'm grateful that I didn't grow up being taught that hate or that, difference of people. I just there was a very diverse group of boys in boy choir, and we all hung out and didn't think anything of it. And I never knew any different. So, and I just think that's great. And that's kind of how he's growing up as well, which is nice. But yeah. Do you, if you couldn't be an actress, do you know what you would be doing? You have a family, obviously. But is there something else that you would want to be doing?
I think for a while I thought I was going to get into maybe writing or communications, some maybe broadcast or journalism. I don't know. It's so hard to know now that I've lived through so much life, and there's so many things that interest me. And I think that's important about actors. I don't know. I'm not the person who says, "Oh, I couldn't. If I hadn't been an actor, I would have died."
Right.
I just always did it. I always loved it. It was rewarding for me. It was hard work. I was willing to put in the work. I was willing to be patient. Like my husband's a wonderful actor. But it just did not make sense to him that he could work, with Frank Galati and then go work at a small storefront theater and then not have a job for a long time and then get another. It just didn't make sense to him. And I get that. I totally get that. But being the sixth of 7 children, always having to fight for everything I got or just let it go, I just learned a different way of living. And I was just really patient with that. I think to be in the theater, you have to be incredibly patient and yet also incredibly determined. It's you have to be you have to be sensitive and have an ability to open up yourself, and you also have to be thick-skinned. It's this really interesting kind of yin and yang, and how to be okay with that.
There's a lot of hypocrisy. I mean, it's a lot of, because you're right. You have to be able to walk out of an audition and leave it in that room and go,
okay, I did my best.
Whatever. It's done. I can't do anything about it now. And not drive home, beating yourself up. And at the same time, when you're working, somebody's saying something to you, you got to go, okay. And you take it and you move forward with it. And it's a hard lesson. We're all still learning it, but it's hard. It's funny. You're like me, as maybe of similar circumstances, but I'm from 6 children.
Really?
I'm the middle in 6 kids. So yeah. And pretty much all of them went into some sort of, for a while, most of all of them were in the entertainment field in some way.
Really?
So they all kind of went off and did their thing. But so yeah, it's interesting.
Boys, girls, what?
Both. 3 boys and 3 girls.
Oh my word! You're the
so and broken up exactly that way. So it was girl, boy, girl, boy, girl, boy.
Wow.
So and there's a little bit of a gap, but it's 6 kids in the family. So
Where are your folks now?
Well, they both have passed. My dad passed actually last year.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. He had which I found out recently that he was the big. I knew my mother. My mother used to tell me stories about going to New York all the time. She actually lived just in New Jersey and Connecticut. Those are the two places she lived, and then she moved to Tennessee. But she would travel on the train and go and see, shows in New York, and had great stories about that. And she was big into film and movie stars. She used to have scrapbooks. She would make scrapbooks and all sorts of stuff. So, but my dad was a big lover of music and musicals, and we went to so many musicals when I was a kid. So many different I was taken to theater. He told me a couple of years ago, he goes, "Yeah, you were a really good theater kid. Like, we started taking you to theater when like you were 8 or 7, and you would sit and watch the whole show, and you were not a problem." So, that's something connected with me then. So, but I saw a lot of musicals. He loved Fiddler. I saw 7 different versions of Fiddler.
That's a great show.
At
That's
some
a great
point.
show.
So yeah, really interesting. So what is on the horizon for you? I know recently you've been working on a web series called, I forgot the name.
Well, I was working on a couple of them, and both have ended. I did Stage for a while, and then I did
Stage. That was one.
Lisa's World.
Lisa's World.
Yeah, I was the best friend on
that.
Yeah. But I mean, what I was going to do was teach that acting class, which I was really excited about.
Right.
I don't know. Does anybody have anything on the horizon? I was going to direct Vanity Fair, and I was again courting, people of all different ages and colors, and I was very excited about having because it's a cast of 6.
Yeah, you double cast it, right?
4 of them play like 35 roles.
That's right. It's like Baskerville, where 4 of the actors play all the different characters.
Yeah, and then there's the 2 main women. I mean, those people who know Vanity Fair, it's Becky Sharp and Amelia, and they Sedley, and it's their relationship. In particular, it's Becky Sharp, and it's kind of a immorality play. It's fun. It's very fun. It's set in the in the rich world of Regency England and Vauxhall Gardens and all of that, the fireworks and all of those things happening in the intrigues. And I was working on, my assistant director and I were working on it. Even when quarantine started, we would still meet twice a week on Zoom, and we would talk through the show. And we've kind of now just are paddleboarding.
Just relaxing, right? Relaxing. Yeah, taking a break. We're all taking a break.
I mean,
keep it focused.
What are people doing?
Some people are doing things. I have, one of a gal I've worked with before. She's doing a lot of like voiceover stuff. So a lot of, and some people are doing things via Zoom and a few auditions, and little things are starting to open up a little bit. But I don't think anybody's doing anything major, and certainly nothing's happening in theater right now.
No, but voiceover, that's a really. I mean, I almost started my own voiceover site because I was doing those voices for VeggieTales for so long, and then I started getting a lot. I got called in a lot through my agent, just to do stuff. And I thought, man, this is a great time to set up a site. And I never did because then I had kids.
I don't think I knew you did VeggieTales.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think you ever mentioned that before. So you did VeggieTales. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I think everybody knows that. No, at least the show. Yeah.
Everybody knows VeggieTales. Yeah.
Who are some of your influences? Do you have any like influences in like film or television or even theater? That people that you go, wow, that's somebody
when I saw
really
Janet McTeer do A Doll's House on Broadway, that changed my life. Yeah. She was so utterly in the body of, was it Nora? No, that's A Doll's House. That's what I saw. Doll's House. Yeah.
Doll's House.
Yeah, she was so utterly in the body of her, and you just saw the whole journey from start to finish, and that was, to be in that room, that was thrilling.
Where did you see that?
I saw it in New York on Broadway.
I just meant which theater it was. Do you remember which theater? I'm just curious. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
No, it was 1997 or 98.
Yeah. But it was a riveting performance, apparently. So,
she and he were brilliant. But that was one of those moments where I watched a show, and you know, I had been through grad school. That was when I went to New York because I was kind of on an engagement trip. So I was fully grown and formed, you know, and I'd seen many, many shows, and I just was stunned. I was stunned. I think that performance was amazing. I'm now a little more influenced by the whole picture because I think as much like a director as an actor, sometimes more like a director than an actor now that I direct. And I just saw, did you see the Jane Eyre that the Theater of Great Britain? They had right away when we went into quarantine,
I did not see that.
They opened it up. It was stunning. It was stunning storytelling. Just like you said, Baskervilles, it was the whole, the ensemble of 7 people, except for Jane Eyre, all
play the different characters. Yeah.
Staggeringly brilliant.
Yeah.
Just brilliant. And the use of kind of this one big structure, and it would be all different places, and to go so fully into the needs of each scene to build the story.
Yeah.
You know, like you really got to the heart of it.
Yeah.
Each time. I know I can sit here and talk about it. It was a moving experience for me.
No, yeah, I've seen a number of performances like that where it just connects with you in a certain way. So it's great. What advice would you give to somebody starting out?
There's my beagle. Did you see?
I just saw your beagle.
Starting out.
Like somebody who's like made that decision going, I want to do this. I want to be an actress. I want to, you know, whether they're moving to LA or going to New York, whether they're going to pursue theater or film or TV or whatever.
Okay, I have 3 things that just off the top of my head, I don't think about this, but I think number 1 is put yourself into every situation where you can learn more about theater. So that's going to be going to see theater, doing the jobs, auditioning, fully preparing for the audition, getting off book, making your choices, throw yourself into it, because it's really, and it's so hard to be willing to fail in front of people, but that's the only way you're going to discover how to be a great artist. Is to just throw yourself into it. And let, you know, other people are going to judge you. There's nothing you can do about that. All you can do is create and throw yourself into it. So that's number 1, is do it, watch it, learn from it. Just do it, and do it fully. Don't put your toe in it. If you really want to be an actor, do it. Go do something. Go fail hard. Go do it. Go see it. Go see the best shows. Any show that somebody tells you is brilliant, go see it. Number 2, the best word is the word at the end of the sentence. People spend so much time personalizing and figuring out what they want and understanding their emotion. The story has to be told. And it's that Shakespeare, you know, we all learn this when we take the 6 weeks or 6 month Shakespeare class. The best one is the one right before the period. So drive to that and keep going. You know, you see people, and I learned this doing all my SAG auditions. The people who get the jobs are the people who talk fast. You drive, you have a solid intention, and you drive to the end of it. You drive to the end of it, and you don't stutter and wait and pause. You get to that point, because that's what human beings do. And if you can do that theatrically, and then do it if you love it. That's the last one, I guess.
You have to really love it.
You have to love it. It's hard. It's a hard life. It's there's so many failures. There's so many disappointments. Figure out a way to be okay with yourself and do it if you love it.
I would add to that, because is to not be such a purist. I think I was a purist for a real long time. And to be open to like other opportunities. I'm just saying in general, like in acting, just to not be such a purist about, oh, it's got to be this, it's got to be a certain thing, it's got to be this, to just be able to take, and it's kind of what you were saying for number 1. It's kind of like being open to, possibilities. Like I did a season like Mystery Cafe. Younger me would have never done that. You know, well, maybe they would have, but it just being open and like, that's an experience. And I'm grateful for that experience because it informed other experiences where I needed to write and I needed to create something. Because I had that experience, I was like, oh, I know how to do this now because I've been a part of something like that. So yeah, it's just being open to those peripheral acting jobs. I'm not saying you need to be a singing telegram person,
Right,
although you can be, but
if you like it,
yeah, but I mean, just being open to those possibilities of being able to do other stuff that's maybe not like completely immersed in your field the way you think of it, but like, I'm still acting, I'm still doing this, I'm still entertaining. And there's a real value in that because it opens up a lot of your, possibilities monetarily.
And you learn
and
through
experience.
trying. You learn, your body learns through doing something. You don't learn, like somebody can say, oh, you're going to hang this blind by putting in this screw and doing that thing. Well, okay,
right.
That's all in my head, but not until I actually do it.
Yes.
Do I fully understand how to do it? And that's incredibly true with acting.
Yeah.
Not until I go through the journey of, oh, this person doesn't love me anymore. And I have to scrape myself up off the ground and, and learn how to, whatever the story is.
Whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been amazing. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us. So, yeah.
Thank you for inviting me.
Sure. Do you have any parting words, or were those are good parting words that we went out on?
We did pretty well, didn't we?
We did pretty well.
Do it if you love it. Do it like you love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love it. Come from the love. I think that's David Ellenstein always teases me because he's like, I'm always about the love.
Right. Yeah.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. Find the love in your character, find the love in your art, find the love in your life.
Yeah. And do it with abandon. Immersive abandon.
Because you love it. Because it's more fun that way.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
It's so nice to see you.
Nice to see you. We've been talking with Jacqueline Ritz. This has been Stage Perspective. My name is Charles Peters. If you like this video, please like it and click on that little icon there. And also, if you'd like to see more videos, check us out by subscribing, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.